Giving your child independent reading time is probably the most important thing you can do. It's really worth the time to set aside each day. I used to really struggle with getting my firstborn to sit down and read, so I made him a deal. He could stay up late so long as he was reading. So I would basically give him 30 minutes that he could stay up late if he was reading. And he really got hooked into reading through the homeschool book club that was offered once a month at the library. It exposed him to a whole bunch of books that he never would have checked out on his own. He got to see his friends. The librarian led them through a discussion, and she usually had a snack and a themed activity. I never forced him to read the book of the month, though. If he wasn't interested, that was fine. And so I would really recommend, if that's available for you or this year, to check that out. Personally, I never liked when teachers made us read certain books. I usually didn't bother and would just pretend my way through it. So I keep that in mind with my kids. I never assign them books to read. When they sit down for actual reading time, I require that they read at their level. So like my daughter, she always wants to read board books, but I tell her, no, that's not at your level. That's for babies. That's too easy for you. You have to sit down and read an actual picture book. And that they have to be stories. I don't want them to read like nonfiction because it's not quite the same as a story that you can get hooked into. So when I taught in public school, I usually let them have Fridays to read whatever they wanted, whether that was magazines or comics. But I make my kids do that on their own time because that reading time is really important. So for the youngest kids, you want them to spend from like 5 to 10 minutes. And even if they can't read, they can spend that time looking at books and telling themselves the story about the pictures. For older kids, you want to build them up to where they're reading 20 to 30 minutes a day. I would love if everyone in my house sat down to read at the same time. And I imagine that is lovely, but for us, that's just not ever worked out. I'm usually needing to work with somebody else during that time or get dinner started. But when I was a teacher, I would sit down and read as an example. So I love that idea. We don't do any book reports on personal reading, but you could teach your kid a trick for picking out books so that way they make sure to pick something out on their level. So you tell them you take 5 fingers, and for every word that you come across on the page you don't know, you put 1 finger down. And if you get all 5 fingers down, then that book's too hard for you. Sometimes you can make an exception. I had students who were quite determined to read Harry Potter, and I would let them do it, and it took them a long time, and some kids would give up. But for the most part, because it was Harry Potter, they were really willing to work through that. So I don't generally require that my kids finish a certain number of books. We just go for time. If they're not very motivated to read those, I have sometimes come up with prizes to motivate them. So like if they finish 10 books, then I give them a prize. And that's been stuff from like Froyo to no rules for the whole day. Homeschoolers are also eligible for the Pizza Hut Book It program. It's grades K through 6, and you get a personal pan pizza for free for reaching your reading goal that month. So you can just go to their website and fill out the information, and it doesn't cost anything. And I'm pretty sure they don't use your information for anything. But we did it last year, and it was great because all 3 of my kids got a free pizza, so it was nice. I'm pretty sure that you can still sign up for it at this point in the year. So if you just keep your kid reading this year and practice some math skills, you'll be doing great. So there you have it. It's not a big deal.